Socialism isn't great in any circumstance, but the ideas that he has have to be funded by somebody.
Right, socialism has to be funded, but the problem for New York is it's running out of funding, which is no fun for a socialist mayor with big plans to remake the city in the image of Karl Marx. Those plans are falling apart, just like New York's rotting public transit and decaying housing supply. But if you think that's bad, get ready, because things are about to get even worse.
It's confiscating wealth, not because we want to make anybody's life better, but purely out of resentment, out of an attack on the people who have that wealth to begin with. It really is something we haven't seen in the United States of America.
We balance the budget without slashing the services that New Yorkers rely on, the cultural institutions and public transportation that connect people to the city and to one another. And we raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers.
I don't want to live in a city where I actually believe that it's too difficult to actually have my property value appreciate like it does in places like Florida. So over time, you're going to really ruin these commercial and residential real estate values.
Finally, Mamdani also backed off a potential expansion of the NYPD. It was a campaign promise some thought he may not keep.
Commissioner Tisch and I were able to identify ways to keep the NYPD headcount at the originally authorized 35,000 while also meeting all of our crime-fighting needs.
In addition to the bad policies and the ideas that are being floated that have failed across the world, there's also this rising anti-Americanism. Quote, I forgot to get napkins, so I just wiped my hand on the American flag behind me.
So the mayor says the city's not going bankrupt anytime soon, but they're spending more money than ever before. And what nobody's talking about is you don't do stuff like this, spending everything as fast as you can if your goal isn't to maximize a tiny short-term political gain at the expense of the city's long-term future, which is exactly what's happening, because the only way communism can envelop a society and transform it is if it breaks down the door and takes no prisoners. Because once you start stealing from your own population in order to hand out freebies to everyone, things start to break down, which means the socialists have to steal fast enough to stay slightly ahead of their own failures, which has New York on the road to ruin. And I'm seeing article after article saying we're on the edge of a disaster, we're getting very close, everyone's about to pull the plug, but the truth is, a lot of people already have. With CEOs shipping jobs out of the New York area at record rates, while investors dump their apartment portfolios for just pennies on the dollar, because that's all they think they can get, revealing that those with the ability to create anything see no reason at all to do something like that in New York. And that brings us to the real reason New York is in trouble. If you're gonna jack up taxes and fees on anybody who does anything here, all you're gonna do is make life worse for the city's middle class. And without them, the city itself is doomed. Now that might shock you because the socialists are claiming they don't want to do anything that's gonna negatively affect the middle class. But freezing rents, raising taxes, threatening to raise property taxes, taxing companies for having too many employees, all these things do is translate into higher costs for people who shop at the grocery store and for people who want to rent an apartment, while their paychecks shrink as the companies who hire them have no choice but to give some of their money to the communists. And with that being the boots on the ground reality of what's happening in the capital of capitalism because of socialism, there's only one course of action.
Socialism isn't great in any circumstance, but the ideas that he has have to be funded by somebody. That wealth has to be created. I don't see people running out of New York. And much like you, I'm a Florida resident, but I also happen to have a house here. So I'm waiting for my notification on August 30th or whenever it's supposed to come about the tax. And my house is up for sale. I don't want to live in a city where I actually believe that it's too difficult to actually have my property value appreciate like it does in places like Florida.
Right, so the mayor's gone out of his way to stack his administration and his team with people who don't think anyone should be earning anything from their private property. They don't even like the idea of private property. They want it gone. And this is how they're gonna do it. They're gonna declare war on anybody who owns anything that makes money, which is why landlords are so high up on the chart as far as enemies of socialists go. And what does this do? This just destroys the lives of average people who want to live in an apartment that's well maintained and want choices. You see people stop building apartments once the government threatens to take them away, which is what we're seeing right now, leaving renters with very few options and very high prices. And you know something? Earlier this year, the mayor threatened to raise taxes on homeowners, and he even said himself, this is going to affect people in the middle class. And he said, I don't want to do it, but I might have to if the governor of the state doesn't give me more money for my budget. Well, that was the first thing he did, which is causing some of the richest people in the world to get out of New York City real estate altogether. And when the whales jump ship, the whole ship implodes. But the mayor says this is all fake news. Watch.
Throughout this process, I've been reminded of the words of the Austrian economist, Friedrich Hayek. If socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. If these past months have shown us anything, it is that socialists not only understand economics just as well as the capitalists who came before, but that we can solve their years of mismanagement through an embrace of our principles. There is nothing fiscally responsible about balancing the budget on the backs of working people.
So the mayor's out there saying that he understands the economy and he understands how things work just as well as the capitalists. And that's why it's okay to be a socialist, because we're responsible too. And here we are with a balanced budget, and a balanced budget is proof of responsibility, right?
If you show me a clip like that, Stuart, my blood starts to boil. Didn't he just take money from the state? Anybody can balance a budget and do that. If I owe $12 million and I go to somebody else and I say, hey, give me $12 million and let me kick this down the can for the next guy's problem, I don't know that that's solving anything. This guy's unbelievable.
So a balanced budget isn't proof of responsibility. All it is proof that your expenses equal your income, and the income gap was filled in with other people's money. All this is proof of socialists being responsible, yes, to the viewpoints in the Communist Manifesto, which is guiding all of their decisions right now, whether they know it or not, because these people do not believe in private property. They do not believe in you earning a living unless it is they who hand you that living and you owe them for it. And ask yourself this, would anybody who understands economics brag about passing something like this?
Mayor Zohran Mamdani and City Council Speaker Julie Menin shook hands in the age-old New York City tradition of agreeing on a budget. The key breakthrough is the mayor and the City Council settling a lawsuit over the city's ballooning $1.8 billion rental assistance program. In the end, the program to subsidize the costly rental market will be reformed to grow in a more manageable way, with 30,000 additional New Yorkers getting into the program this coming year.
By expanding rental assistance and creating a new $175 million housing voucher program for New Yorkers in need.
But no.
Wait a second. The mayor didn't expand housing assistance. We just heard housing assistance was so out of control. The voucher program that subsidized the cost of people's $5,000 rents was growing exponentially, and they had to cut people off while creating some other sort of program that has a big number attached to it, but isn't going to help people the same way this one was. And all this proves is nobody running the madhouse that is New York City understands how the economy actually works, because we had the mayor saying, I don't want to do this housing assistance program. And then we had other people, these progressives, saying, oh, we should do this housing assistance program. Meanwhile, both groups want more government involvement with housing. The only problem here is the housing assistance program was feeding city money directly into the pockets of landlords, offering market rate apartments. And if you think a communist mayor wants private landlords getting his money, you got another thing coming. But the problem is none of these options revolve around the idea of giving people choices and letting people do things on their own. You see, if you would just allow people to build apartments in New York, you would lower the cost of apartments because there would be more apartments. But since we're not going to do that, people have to beg for handouts. And one way or another, it sounds like they're going to get them from other people's money, which is apparently running out so quickly, they got to cancel these programs when they start skyrocketing.
Other top-line items in the budget include millions for the expansion of fair fares, which chops the $3 subway and bus fare in half for many low-income New Yorkers.
Oh!
This budget is a win for New Yorkers who can now travel to work
I thought it was supposed to be free
without worrying about the cost.
Though the mayor insists he'll continue to push to make all bus buses free.
Oh, thank God.
Finally, Mamdani also backed off a potential expansion of the NYPD. It was a campaign promise some thought he may not keep.
Oh, don't worry about that. How on earth could a socialist mayor that said he wants to defund the police fail to keep a campaign promise that said he's going to do that while passing the biggest budget in New York City history? The city just decided it's going to spend more money than it's ever spent before, and there is zero money for new police. And guess what? The 35,000 officers we have now, that might sound like a lot, but it's way under the number of officers we had back in 2000 when the city's population was much smaller. So what's happening here is our population is growing and the number of police we have is shrinking, and we've decriminalized bad behavior all across the board. Crime is going through the roof. And that's the system. The system here is that criminals are protected. The leaders in communism are protected. It's the little guy who has to suffer with these policies. It's the little guy that has to go to the grocery store and wonder why his groceries cost more because the grocery store just got hit with higher taxes and just got hit with extra fees for things like water that come in from the city and help the place run. And then he's got to wonder why his paycheck gets smaller because the government's stealing from his employer as well, and the employer has to earn a profit. But you see, all we're doing here is punishing people that are doing anything outside of socialism. You see, the only way you're supposed to get ahead in socialism is with the help of it. If you're over here with your own business, with your own apartment building, doing your own thing, you don't need them. They don't need that.
Mamdani has asked folks to set their ACs to just 78 degrees. He says that will help stabilize the grid. It seems defeatist, though, right? And not unlike the infamous Jimmy Carter fireside chat when he wore that sweater. Leading by example, President Carter wore that sweater and he implored folks to regulate their thermostats. Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
All of us must learn to waste less energy. Simply by keeping our thermostats, for instance, at 65 degrees in the daytime and 55 degrees at night, we could save half the current shortage of natural gas.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the only problem with this is the communists, or the people who are actually communists but just don't know it yet because they call themselves Democrats, they've got this idea that there needs to be some rule that applies to everybody out there except for them. Here's somebody with a heat detector which says that the temperatures in City Hall are 61 degrees. And look at the size of that room right there. That's like 1,000 New York City apartment bedrooms worth of AC just being wasted in a government building. So the government sets these rules. They don't have to abide by them, but you better abide by them. You better put your AC at 78 and listen to how the mayor said that businesses needed to do this and pay close attention.
Last week, I signed an executive order focused on protecting workers from the hazards of heat. Our administration is hard at work, developing guidelines that will keep workers safe. While we finalize these guidelines, I want to urge all employers in New York City to develop those plans to protect your employees. It is not enough to say that they can take breaks when their paycheck is on the line. Workers cannot cool down when they have quotas to meet. They cannot go into a cooling center when they are on the clock. Please make a point of ensuring that your employees know their rights and that they will not face consequences for staying safe. And to every business owner, please set your thermostats to 78 degrees to alleviate the stress on our power grid.
So the mayor says businesses need to stop abusing their employees. Businesses need to respect their employees because obviously they don't do that or he wouldn't have to say it. Businesses need to stop telling people they have quotas. Businesses need to stop doing this. Businesses need to stop doing that. And they need to make it so hot in their business, nobody wants to work there anyways. I mean, this is crazy. That entire statement was loaded with attacks on the people who create jobs and sustain themselves and lift people up out of poverty by giving them an opportunity. But nope, not good enough for the mayor who wants everything at 78 degrees except the government's own buildings.
But his speeches, the Malay speech, this speech, they were always downers. They were always like, you know what, do this, but never attack the issues, never fix the problem, and help usher in Ronald Reagan in a long period of prosperity. But here we are again, and I'll start with you, listen, fix your AC, but that's it. You know, no one's going to really listen to that, I don't think.
No, and the thing is only people in communist countries listen to the government on how to set their thermostat. I lived in Beijing, and they would say, keep your thermostat at this level, and everyone would follow instructions. So Mamdani is doing exactly what they're doing in China, and President Trump has completely offset that with his energy policies, and we're not going to turn down our thermostat. I want it at 68.
This is something, and it's...
Okay, so here's the other thing nobody's talking about. New New York City, it's experiencing a quote unquote heat wave, right? Central Park hits 100 degrees. Now, if you live in America and you don't live in the freezing cold Northeast, 100 degrees is normal. That happens. There's parts of the country that get 90, 100 degrees all the time. The entire state of Florida has all their ACs running 24/7 in every single building, and nobody's telling people in Florida to turn down their thermostats. Nobody, so the idea that we have a power grid in New York that can't handle basic weather patterns that are not somehow bizarre to America, that's another issue. And it has to do with this marriage between communism and these whacked out green energy plans that caused New York to shut down all of its power plants, which is why the grid is working so hard. Oh, it's working so hard. Well, it wouldn't have to work so hard if you would just keep your power plants open, but nope, they don't want to do that. And look at this. New York is actually importing electricity from Canada. And there's a power plant in Quebec that apparently went down. It was providing hydropower to New York City, and now it's not working. And New York City is like, well, now we got to use all of our power from fossil fuels, and now the grid's working too hard. And that's why they shut off power to parts of the Bronx. On the hottest day out there, they just shut the electricity off. So now people in the Bronx, they can't even have their AC at 78 because there's no power in their home. And the mayor, he's got the buildings at City Hall, 61 degrees. Maybe if you live in the Bronx, you should go live in City Hall where it's 61 degrees, where they're not going to shut off the power because they can run the utilities at full tilt there, and they're paying for it with everybody else's money. Doesn't matter that they're paying the highest electricity rates in the whole country. They got everybody else's money for that. What do you think about this disaster the city's walking into? Is it going to get better? Is it going to get not better? Let me know. See you in the next video.